Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Real Hero Show. It's been a while, but
Too
Shane and
long.
I are
Too
here
long.
to talk about Halo and the wrapping of season 1. Shane, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's been too long. We've been caught up on a whole bunch of things and
Yeah,
traveling.
yeah,
But
exactly.
there's
You're
been
on
so much
vacation. I was
stuff
on
coming
vacation.
out that now we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, this is a perfect time to get back into the swing of things. So, if you haven't watched our mid-season point review, I think we stopped at maybe episode 4 or 5
Yeah.
at the point, and talked about what we'd seen thus far, what we surmised would happen for the rest of the season. Well, now we're here to talk about the rest of the season. What are our thoughts? Which may or may not get a little grim, but let's just dive straight into this. Overall, what did you think, Shane? Was it worth creating, or should they just not have done this whole show to
Ah.
begin with?
um, I like to stay optimistic and say there were things I enjoyed about it. I enjoyed some of the action scenes, and I think like the armor looks good and some of the weapons and stuff like that. So it was good to see that in live action.
Yeah,
Um, the storyline they went with is just confusing to me.
very.
I mean, I think I get the intent. I don't need it to be the exact story from the game, and I think they kind of pseudo retconned it in by making it a prequel to the game rather than like differing completely. So like theoretically, season 2 could kind of start where like
Combat
Fall of
Evolved
Reach kind
starts.
of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or
So
that too. Yeah,
like maybe that'll work. But it was an interesting storyline. I mean the elephant in the room is Master Chief sex scene. Like what?
yeah. What do they call them? Master
Master
Cheeks.
Cheeks.
So
Yeah. Yeah, we have too many clothes on to be
clever.
doing this review.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
um I mean overall this quality of the storytelling is not very strong. There's a couple interesting things in there that I liked, but it's just dragged down by a lot of horrible decisions. I
yeah,
don't think it's beyond saving though. Like I like Pablo Schreiber in that role. I think he does pretty well. I think with a couple of tweaks and maybe a bit more grounded viewpoints from the writing staff, then maybe it could get somewhere. Like there's so many shows that have sucked in season 1 and then they
yeah.
go on to be great shows. So it's possible. And we already know it's renewed for season 2, right?
Yep,
So
yep.
maybe, and I think it's a different showrunner for season
It
2.
is. Yep.
So maybe they saw what happened and like, you're out of here, man.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting, and I think you bring a good point up too, where the first season of a show might not be that good, and especially when you swap showrunners, that the second season
Yeah.
could potentially be a lot better. The showrunner, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he could potentially learn and see of all the mistakes and all the a lot of negative feedback that is out there.
Yeah.
Um, and I know it's really easy to be negative about this show. I mean, I've
Right.
sort of ranted about it on the side to you and another friend of mine, and it's unfortunate to say because of how much we appreciate this IP, since we've been playing for decades now. But yeah, this is very much in looks of a alternate dimensional prequel to the Fall of Reach book, and so yeah, like season 2 could potentially combine what the Fall of Reach book has, with what happens to Reach, and then leading into uh, Halo Combat Evolved, to the
Yeah.
first Halo video game. Um, and I will say, in terms of non-biased perspectives, yeah, like the aesthetics of the armors, the weaponry, I think even some of the CGI was
It was
pretty well done.
yeah, it was
Like,
like passable for a TV show.
right,
Like
exactly.
this isn't some huge Hollywood production. Like it's
Right,
the budget is restricted, so they can only do so much. But like it
right.
looked good enough. I thought the
Yeah.
action scene in like the premiere was probably the worst, but like the later action scenes got way better.
Yeah, the season finale action
It was
scene
great.
at the end was yeah, I really enjoyed that whole
Yeah.
action
I
sequence.
liked the finale a lot, actually. Like, they built to, like, a good like ticking clock scenario. There was tension. There was like excitement. Like that stuff worked for me. It was all the weird like love story, like cheesy stuff, and then the Quan storyline, which I think they were trying something new and
Yeah,
just
just
didn't
go
land.
well. No.
Uh, so like that stuff really dragged it down. But like when it hit its stride, it's good. But it didn't happen very often.
Yeah, it's like we were saying, there is a story here, and when you're trying to differentiate your own original story from a very, very well ingrained story in a long lasting IP, it's hard to do something different and do it well, especially when you're changing things. And it's sort of like an inevitable thing that did happen. And a lot of obviously a lot of fans out there, myself included, from again a biased perspective, where I'm like, this is stupid, or I don't know why they did this, but they did it anyway.
Right.
And it's just like we're along for the ride to see what their explanation was or their like justification by it, and it was very weird to see when again at the end Chief goes down and Cortana
Like activates him.
takes, yeah, like he becomes like the Terminator. He becomes like what I always wanted to see in the show of Master Chief. Like he's silent, he doesn't say anything, he just goes in there and opens up a can of whip ass,
Yeah.
like shots on point, fighting mechanics on point, right? Like he gets the job done. And I mean, obviously he can't remotely control the Pelican, but I feel like from the aspect of the game, like Chief would be doing something like that, and then Cortana as the AI would be piloting that while he's
Right.
like Chief
Right.
himself is like awake, he's conscious.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it kind of
but
makes sense though, right? Like she's plugged into him, so I guess like
yeah, like
you kind of take it up an extra level.
that's the caveat, like
Right.
because and again, I think that like I was saying, that's part of like their reasoning for her being surgically implanted
Right.
into his brain, as opposed to it being like a little disc that
Right.
goes into the Mjolnir
Right.
suit. That's why she's able to take over his whole body. The
Yeah.
game that never would have happened.
Right.
So
Right.
we see like again like at least they backed up their writing for that,
Yeah.
which um at least that's something from the writing aspect I care about to see. It's like if you don't back up your writing, then I will be very disappointed in you. But
Yeah, it wasn't like that came out of nowhere. Like
right,
that was set up early and then pays off
later
later.
on we
So
see.
like yeah, cuz like they talk so much throughout the whole show about whether or not she can take over his body, and then like it's a good little payoff moment that it's like a character moment too. Like he trusts her enough that he
Yes.
lets her do it. So I'm cool with that.
Yep. And
It's got to be tough, right? Like writing something like this because you can't just write the game, right? You can't just write the exact story because that's a little bit boring, right? And you also can't make Master Chief this like badass who can't be stopped because that's a little boring too. So they have to like humanize him, and they tried to do that
yeah.
by like just never having his helmet on.
Yeah, it's
And
like that whole fight between uh the other two Spartans.
yeah,
Like it would have been a much different battle if he had his armor on, because at that point he's in like his little exo suit, not
right,
his Mjolnir armor.
yeah,
So it wasn't until Kai shows up that the playing field was a little bit more even.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I do get like the idea of it is hard. It's sort of like if I were me being a very strong Halo fan, um, how would I do things differently? And I think a lot of people have played the game. A lot of people haven't read the Fall of Reach book. So I think, I probably would have kept it closer to home from the book aspect.
yeah,
Maybe do a lot more flashbacks in the show. Again, I probably would have done more to establish like characters like Captain Keys,
yep,
like, how he became the captain.
yep,
Maybe more on like the relationship between like the Keys family, um, which wasn't too bad, and I think, um, getting Dr. Halsey, and I like that actress as well, from other shows that she's
Yeah, she
done.
was good. I
Um,
liked her character in this show.
yeah, and I think if anything, she really like made it so that you kind of didn't like the decisions that she was going with, like for furthering the science. And turns out that she herself was a clone,
Yeah.
which was kind of wild. And I was like,
So, was it
oh, okay.
her was she the clone the whole time, or did she switch it at some point?
You know,
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
yeah, like I mean, she could have, but then again, I think she also could have just been, yeah, a clone the entire time. I don't know. It would have, if she would have sent her, like if she herself would have gone off to another world at that point. We didn't see it in the show, which would have maybe made a little bit more sense, to like interject that little like small snippet, like saying that she's leaving, but then she's back, and it's like, oh, did she get
Yeah,
back already? But like, no, she actually didn't. That was her real self going off, and she just left her clone here
right.
to fill in for X amount of time. Um, so I think again, going to the following seasons, that's when things would get more difficult to do your own thing, to
Yeah,
create a story that
yeah,
isn't so on the nose of
because that's a
what we
direct, like, overlap
played.
with the games. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I
And I get it. Not everyone's going to go back and play, um, Halo One, especially people who just don't like video games, or who are brand new to the show.
Yeah,
But there again, you could probably watch a YouTube video out there that certainly encapsulates all of what Halo One consists of from the story, and then just be done with that way. But what did you think about I guess McKee's ending?
whatever.
Yeah, I was like, okay, good, she's done. Bye.
Yeah, she
It,
was a plot device,
very
and
much so.
that's she wasn't a character, she was a plot device, and
Yep.
I hate when shows do that, and this show did a little bit of a poor job of establishing the characters that aren't Master Chief.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really care about any of them. They're just kind of means to an end. Halsey is maybe the only one that we get a little bit more of, like, her motivations, why
Right.
she is the way she is. But, like, they try and establish, Keys, like Miranda and Captain Keys, and
Yep.
like Miranda Keys is just like, I guess her motivation is, she's smart, but her mom doesn't want her to be important or something.
Anything. Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I think the best shows that I've seen, they establish an ensemble cast and they give enough time to each of these characters. So, for an example, you could have had an entire episode that is like the Miranda Keys episode or
Yep.
something like that, where
Yep.
we get, her backstory, what makes her tick, et cetera, et cetera. And you devote that hour of television so that in the future, when she's on screen again, you know more about her, you care more about her. And this is where TV really benefits you. A lot of people are writing these TV shows like long movies and just
Yep.
kind of introducing these characters. You don't really know much about them, and then the plot's going.
Yep.
Whereas some of the best shows, like if you've ever watched Lost or The Leftovers, or
Yep.
both of those are Damon Lindelof shows, but he does a really good job in both of those shows of establishing each character. So you might be introduced to a new character, and then either the next episode or maybe 2 episodes later, you get a full episode of backstory for that character and how did they arrive here, what makes them tick. And I think that is really powerful stuff, because then you spend more time with these characters. And so everything after that is suddenly better.
Yeah.
And this show didn't do that. Like, it's Master Chief. You could have had a whole episode of him and Dave Chappelle in the show, whatever his
Oh,
name was.
Soren.
Soren,
Soren.
thank you.
Yeah. Soren 66.
You could have had that whole backstory episode where they were, together, instead of that one little moment that's like 15 seconds long where there's like he's gonna escape.
Yeah.
And plus that would round out Chief's backstory too. But I see how they
Yeah.
chose to do like he's uncovering the memories of his backstory. But I just structurally think that would have worked a little bit better. And I wish more shows would do that. Like, a lot of shows forget to establish their secondary characters.
Yeah, that's true. And I really wish they would have done that, because it would have been more of his past to see, from a training aspect, when they were becoming, or rather going through the Spartan 2 program. We could have seen and been able to, emphasize more with the characters, with, Chief caring about his squad mates, why it was so important to, keep him as uh, a hidden friend,
Hmm.
after all this time. Because in the actual canon, part of what they introduced in the show is true, except he was just pronounced, MIA and dead, after his ship crashed. But obviously in the show they didn't do that. And you kind of brought up another point where they'll spend time trying to develop this other character with Quan and
And then
Soren.
she's totally inconsequential.
Yeah,
And
like,
it
why
doesn't go
not use
anywhere.
those
Yeah.
exactly, use those episodes to establish more of, Miranda, Captain Keyes,
Yeah.
more maybe with Dr. Halsey, even though they did a pretty decent amount, but the other Spartans, like, they could have done so much more with the other characters in the cast that we do get to see more often, that we would probably care more about,
Yep.
than Quan and the weird insurgency that's happening, like.
Yeah. And maybe they have plans for that in season 2, or maybe this is this happens all the time in shows where you just kind of forget about that plot.
Yep.
Just cut it right off and just
Yep.
move ahead without it.
Yeah, the
Uh,
new showrunner would be like, "Yeah, this was,
it's
not
not
well
working.
received by
Yeah.
viewers, so
Yeah.
we're just gonna scrap it," and
Yeah.
that's that.
Happens a lot. You ditch characters, you ditch storylines that just didn't really work,
Yeah.
and just hand wave them away, and that's totally fine. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'll probably keep watching just because I like Halo, and there's some interesting stuff in there. But
Yeah,
I think the hate it's getting is a little too severe. Like it's not great, but it's not like the worst thing ever to happen in the history of Halo kind of thing. Like just calm down.
there I mean, I would say there are other IPs that have been, um,
Oh,
I'd
yeah,
say
there's so
ruined,
many
but,
bad video game movies,
like,
and
yeah,
their IPs are just fine. It's like
yeah, I feel like, again, where this isn't, hard coded set in stone canon, so, you could take that as a who you just not care about this show. um I'll obviously keep watching just to see what they do, but obviously so we can, talk about it on here. And I the glass half full part of me would think, and or like to think, because there's a different showrunner,
yeah,
they'll use that to their advantage and maybe try to do some sort of course correction, or actually do more by what the fans kind of want to see. Like, again, not doing word for word sort
right.
of thing, but
It's a
going
balance.
right, yeah, like actually taking more from the lore and from the canon, but then mix and matching
Yep,
with what you're trying to do in your own, creative imagination in this, like, in this established IP.
right.
So I any ideas of what we will or could potentially see for season two, aside from maybe Halo itself or the
Yeah,
Halo
I'm
itself?
thinking it kinda ramps right into
Yeah.
All of Reach and
Yep.
Halo. It was weird that, like, we saw the Halo, but we didn't really. Uh,
Right. Yeah. Like this
so
weird.
I expect them to actually get to the Halo, and, maybe the next season is everything prior to what we thought this season would be, where they end on the Halo, like, it's Fall of
Right.
Reach, and then they end on the Halo.
Yep.
Maybe that's season 2, and maybe that's, like, a decent spot where if it totally fails, you just don't make the show anymore
Right.
because it just leads right into the games, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Exactly
maybe.
true.
Maybe treat it as like a prequel series, and because like we haven't seen the Fall of Reach, and I mean, I guess we have in Halo Reach, but I wonder how closely they'll align to that. But Halo Reach is also very much like, I guess it's less the story of how Reach fell and more just like the action. Like
Right. Yeah.
there's nothing really leading up to it.
Yeah. Yeah. The game itself was more, um,
It's
about.
falling, so get
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Like it doesn't even have Chief in it,
Yeah,
so it's
it
about other
does. If you
Spartans.
hold your right thumbstick to the right,
Oh
when you're
yeah,
on the Pelican.
that's true. That's true. He does make a slight
A little
cameo.
Easter egg cameo.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess we'll see. No idea of when the show will premiere next. Maybe a year from now is my
Sounds
guess.
about right.
So, production, all that stuff, writing, and I would rather them take their time with it
Yep.
and try to, again, do some sort of course correction, maybe improve whatever they can, and hopefully deliver something that's more feasible for fans to grasp and to swallow. And maybe next season we'll have less hate. You
I
know,
I think it would be beneficial if they took that new showrunner on like a press tour and had him interview and stuff like that. And like if they
yes,
are planning on kind of course correcting things, have him talk about, took a look at it and we're adjusting and we hear you kind of that might work. I don't know. You don't want to kind
maybe
of
like
admit
a
defeat, but
maybe like a Reddit AMA sort of
yeah,
thing could
yeah,
be something like where he's not publicly facing anything
true.
and getting like death threats or something
He's got
stupid.
time to respond to.
Right, exactly.
Anything live, it's like, what did I say the wrong thing?
Right, yeah, so maybe something like that could work, and I think some of these people that go to, articles, or newspapers and do, like, articles or, magazines online, like, could work, but I think at the same time, what we saw prior to this show happen, there was some
It was the
information that was
exact
left
opposite.
out,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
so maybe don't do that
Yeah,
for
it's
season
tough.
2.
The spread of information is really tough because
Yes, it
it
is.
causes a lot of outrage for
Yep,
things that may or may not be true,
yep,
and before people even give it a chance. And it's a good comparison to like The Last Jedi, where Mark Hamill came out before the movie came out and said, I totally disagree with the portrayal of Luke Skywalker in this movie. It's like a lot of people just heard that quote, and
yep,
it doesn't matter what the movie was, they were going to hate it.
yep,
And I mean, there's I'm not going to go off on a tangent with Last Jedi, but like it's a good example of like how you can prime people to like or dislike something. And a
yep,
lot of people saw that quote from this show saying like we didn't even play the games or whatever, but like
yep,
that's not what he meant. And
yeah,
they immediately just wrote it off. And like it
yep.
was just going to be hate no matter what. And I think this show is not great by any means, but I don't think it deserves like the insane backlash that it's gotten from fans.
Yeah, and again, I think the other redeeming quality, and I said this before in our half season review, is I do appreciate that they got Jen Taylor, the
Yeah,
original voice for Cortana. Like,
yeah.
and again,
She was
hearing
great.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, she was again one of the best parts of the show. So,
Yeah.
surprise, surprise. But yeah, I hope we get more of her, and and then her and Chief's relationship. I really hope we do get to see more of that. So,
Agree.
I think that's pretty much all
Yeah.
there really is to say about
Yeah. If
the
you don't
last
like it,
25
just don't
episodes.
watch it and pretend it doesn't exist. Like it's
Yeah,
not going to affect you.
exactly. Just my 2 cents at that point would be just stick to the games,
Yeah.
the books, and then just really kind of be done with it. And you know, save money. Don't spend
Yeah.
it on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
You
$10 a
know,
month.
yeah, no way. So I mean, in hindsight, I will say also that it allowed me to watch
Some other shows.
both
Yeah.
1883,
Yeah.
which I really enjoyed, and The Mayor of Kingstown, which I also
Yeah.
enjoyed.
I need to check out that new Star Trek series. I've heard it's good. Strange New Worlds or something. I've heard like really good things about it. I'm not a big Star Trek guy, but if it's good,
Yeah, I was never a big Star Trek fan.
yeah,
Like,
I've always been a Star Wars guy.
I did watch the first 2 Star Trek movies that Jar
Abrams.
Jar Abrams did.
I love
Um,
the first one.
yeah,
Second
no, the
one
first
is
one
like
was great, and then
second one's great if you like turn your brain completely off and just don't focus on the story. It's like, oh, this is fun, and then you like think about it, and you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
yeah, and it's like Benedict Cumberbatch as like the bad guy. I'm like,
He's gone.
oh yeah, Khan, yeah.
Gone.
All right, well that's interesting. So you know, but
But yeah, that's all we have for Halo.
yep. So if you have anything to say, comment on the section below. Express your thoughts. Did you like it? Hate it? Whatever. Just share it, and we'll comment it that way.
It'll be a
And
fun comment section.
yeah, it could be. And then we'll see everyone for season 2. So, sayonara, everyone.